Okay, hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Don't mind the background, looking a little shifted in various spots and places right now. We are things are moving, which I'm very excited about, hyped about, in fact. But yes, Austin and I thought it would make sense to do a video today where I'm responding to a little bit of lore. A little bit of a question about my person, me individually. Early on and over the years, a lot of you have known me to, be a pretty private person. However, I am sort of an open book when it comes to a lot of my personal beliefs and choices, my lifestyle, that sort of thing. And this certainly plays into that. The topic of whether or not I am straight edge. What is straight edge? Without looking at Wikipedia and just basically defining it off the top of my head, it's like a subculture that has roots in the hardcore and metalcore scene, where essentially you're not drinking, you're not smoking or doing drugs, you're not fucking, I guess, which the more that I look at it, the weirder it sort of seems as like a community. Those are very odd and very weird parameters for a group of people to identify themselves. Because with those rules, you have DC punk kids in the 1980s, and yet you also have Mormons, though sometimes, they be getting it on. But you know what, being somebody who lived on the East Coast when he was growing up and was very close to and around the hardcore scene in the area, of course, this sort of thing, I was exposed to it. At the time, it sort of made sense to me as a lifestyle. As personally, I didn't really feel all that interested by drugs and alcohol. I also did not have a girlfriend at the time, so screwing around, getting laid, even with people who I didn't know, not a problem, not an issue. That part was automatic. My family has a sort of slight history with substance abuse issues, and being conscious of that when I was younger, it wasn't really something I wanted to fall into myself. Also, on top of that, my dad didn't really want me drinking and smoking either at that age, which a lot of you might be saying, well, my dad didn't want me drinking and smoking either. Like, so what? Well, your dad wasn't an ex-roid head powerlifter. If he was, you most likely would have been scared for your life too. So yeah, that, and at the time when I was a teenager, I was really into loud and heavy music. I was into, punk music too. So the fact that these sort of self-imposed rules could somehow be in line with the punk scene, the punk ethos, punk aesthetics, that just worked. It just made sense. Plus, considering the circle of friends who I was hanging out with at the time, doing lots of drugs with them probably just wouldn't have been a good idea. Shout out to all of them, though. I love you. So yeah, through my teen years, I abstained from all of that. And even into my 20s, I just didn't really have much of a hunger for it, specifically the drinking and doing drug stuff. I was just very busy and overscheduled at that point in my life between my job, my hobbies, my girlfriend at the time, also being the music director and eventual general manager at a college radio station, all my classes. Yeah, I was a busy boy and just getting completely fucked up, even on a handful of occasions, just wasn't really attractive to me as a concept. Though personally, I had a lot of friends at the time who did drink and did smoke. I didn't really take any issue with them doing it, outside of maybe commenting on this if things were getting a little excessive, maybe in the same way that I've seen in the past with people who I've been related to, or maybe I know personally. But at the end of the day, I get it, addiction's a bitch, and nobody asks for that shit to take over their life. Also, before getting diagnosed with ADHD, my brain always felt a little odd and crazy and on edge and just not 100% a lot of the time, and having it being at an even lower level of proper functionality to me just seemed I sound like the least straight edge person ever right now, because I'm not really being up my own ass talking about how terrible it is for anybody to drink or do drugs or to have casual sex. And I did not really spend a whole lot of time hanging out with people who, considered themselves to be hardcore straight edge around that time, because many of them who I had you know, hung out with on occasion came off as kind of annoying. And honestly, like you need to have more going on in your life other than like not drinking and smoking to make you interesting and, you know, worth being around. In fact, some of the most interesting people I've ever known do that shit on a somewhat regular basis, you know, not overboard, but on a somewhat regular basis. And things are great. They're great. I hold them in high regard. And they don't seem to have any issue with the fact that like I'm just on a different track and that's cool. Plus, on top of it, if straight edge was originally about like avoiding destructive vices, there are way many more things you can be addicted to other than drinking, smoking, and casual sex. Because look, I don't have any hard statistics on this, but I can guarantee you that a lot of those dudes in the straight edge community are filling that void with eating, with toxic masculinity, and with bodybuilding. And sometimes all three. And even as a teenager, I saw that fucking pattern in people. And plus, at this point in my life, it's not like I don't have things that I'm dependent on to get me through the day. Music, seltzer, orgasms, and caffeine. Those are my big four. Rock climbing. Big five. Everyone has something they need contact with on a regular basis in order to keep it together, in order to stay sane in this hell world that we're currently existing in. And you know what? On those three things that I was talking about earlier that I have been avoiding for the majority of my life, I've changed my mind on the limitations I have around those things as I've gotten older, especially the sex one. Not that I grew up as a prude or anything like that, but because I didn't really prioritize sex as a big deal in my mind, I surrounded myself with other people who, you know, were pretty much in the same boat. But as I've gotten older, I've just kind of come to realize, no, it is a big deal to me. It is a big thing. And I don't think casual sex, as long as you're tested, clean, using protection if you need to, also being straightforward with your partner about your history, where you're at, so on and so forth. As long as you're doing all that, it's fine. It's great. In fact, it's really good. I highly recommend it. But again, only if you're being careful and clean and so on and so forth, in moderation, as it were. You know, if Minor Threat wrote Munch, the punk scene would have been revolutionized. But because they didn't, we have to suffer the consequences. But yeah, you know, those are my thoughts on straight edgeness and being straight edge sort of over the course of my lifetime. Essentially just a cool sort of like in-club way of saying, I'm a huge dork. But you know what? There's nothing inherently wrong with avoiding drugs, and there's nothing wrong with doing them either. They're both fine. So long as I guess you're not, you know, going overboard with it and just doing too much, becoming dependent on it. And as long as you're also not like, you know, punching people in the pit for smoking weed. Those we want to avoid. All right. You guys are the best. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. I've got straight edge forever.